Welcome to Coffee and Conversations, where real estate meets the real world. I'm Cindy Quaid.
And I'm Jenna Trudelamundo.
This podcast is about honest conversations, local insight, and real guidance for homeowners, buyers and sellers navigating today's market. From industry myths to market shifts to smart strategies and consumer protection, we break down what you actually need to know without the fluff. So go ahead, grab a cup of coffee, and join us for conversations that inform, empower, and help you feel confident in your real estate decisions. So today's topic, we are going to talk about one of my favorite, and something that, I don't know if it's near and dear to me, but I love first-time home buyers. So we're going to talk about first-time home buyers and hopefully offer some for those of you who are first time, and this is going to kind of apply to anyone who's bought a home before also, talk about some things to think about for first time home buyers. So
Where do you want to start?
there's a lot to unpack.
So what would be your first piece of advice to a first-time home buyer?
Okay. So gosh, there's a lot of things. And, one of the things that I see first-time home buyers making mistakes on, and it's kind of a you can't win for losing type of, because I'm going to give it both ways. One, not committing to an agent. And two, committing to the wrong agent. Oh. And so that's kind of scary, right? So how do you know? Right? You've never done this before. And I see a lot of times, sometimes people, friends and family, those are always one things everybody knows. I don't care.
Somebody in real estate.
There's
Absolutely.
4,000 realtors in the capital region. Somebody knows a realtor, or they know someone who knows a realtor. Now that does not mean it's a bad thing, but it doesn't always mean it's a good thing. Mm-hmm. So I do see that, and that can cause a lot of anguish. And actually, I've seen agents pick the wrong agent, and they've actually decided not to get into home ownership because of it. So that is one thing that I think is really unfortunate, and I would never let having a bad start stop you from pursuing a dream like that.
Absolutely, and achieving your goal. And I love that you said that, because sometimes, you see it all the time with people who have either bad reviews or a bad rep because of a bad experience. And I think that's where it comes in, to make sure that you're making sure that you're picking the right agent to work with.
Yeah. And again, we talked about this before about third-party platforms. We were having a conversation about that and all the different resources. And there's a lot of things. Like, we have a lot of things thrown at us all the time. And I can only imagine how many things, especially once you start to go out on the internet and you start to look for a home, and all these things start popping up. And so where do you go?
The cookies and the crumbles.
Yep, the cookies and the crumbles. And so they are good starts as far as kind of just exploring, but what you want to do is, it's hard to do, I think, is be really open-minded and don't rush into something. But when you meet the right agent, make the commitment. If you feel like this is the right agent, make that commitment, because a good agent, when you commit to them, they're going to commit to you.
That's even like walking through a home too. You're going to know that feeling. Go with your gut. It's never wrong.
Right. That's kind of getting to picking an agent, and then the other is not picking an agent. Another mistake I see is buyers, and this isn't exclusive to first-time buyers. I'm going to say that actually this is probably more to your second or third.
Your seasoned buyers who's walked the walk and went through an experience, possibly with somebody, or on the other end of it.
Or they think that they've done it before, they've got it down, they don't need an agent.
Oof, yeah.
So I see that a lot. I see that, and we talk to people too. It's like, well, yeah, I'm not going to commit to an agent if I see it, and, whoever brings me the property and things like that. And I got to tell you, and it's not because I want you to sign with us, which I, of course, do, but this is really meant to help you. That could not be the worst thing for you. Now, that turns it into the luck of the draw. And I'm not a gambler. right? So
I'm not either.
I'm not a big fan of the luck of the draw. Of course, I love it when it goes in my direction.
But the chances that it may, you never know.
So I would not just sign with an agent who brought me the property, because let's say I love that property and now I'm not with the right agent. And that whole process turns into a nightmare. There's a lot of information out there. People are going to be aware. You want to find the right agent. So let's talk about what makes the right agent.
That was going to be my question for you.
Okay.
Do you want me to start?
I'm going to let you go.
Okay,
Sure.
you'll let me go.
I'm going to let you go.
Put me out there.
I'm going to put you down the rabbit hole.
Well, I think
No.
first and foremost, everything's based off the initial conversation. Do you feel right speaking with that person? How's their tone? Are they asking the right questions that make you feel secure, even going to see a property with them? I'm a very personal person, as most people know, but I do think that has a lot to do with it, as well as just that initial conversation, that energy. And then once you do get to the property, if you get to that point, I hope they're not just walking you through a home and saying, this is the kitchen, this is the living room. And it's very blatant things that you could tell from photos.
Yeah.
You want an agent who's paying attention to the detail.
That's a really good point, because we do a lot of training in here. And one of the things that we did this past year, we did like how to show a home properly.
Yeah.
And one of the things that, as you know from working with me for so long, that drives me nuts is when somebody walks in a house and goes, this is the foyer, this is the bathroom, you don't need an agent to do that. If you can't recognize the kitchen from the bathroom, you shouldn't be buying a home. Okay, you're not ready. Take my word for it. You need an agent who is going to see things that you don't. And so I always say, like, when I walk someone through a home, they're looking at everything. They're looking at the colors. They're actually looking at the furniture.
Well, they're looking at the oohs and ahs of the property.
Right.
That's how I like to put it.
Yep, they're looking at the oohs and ahs. And you want to have someone who's got a really good eye, because let's say, for instance, you like that property. You want to put an offer on the property. I'm gonna speed date this one. You put an offer on the property, you get the property, and then you get into inspections. And that's when you start to lay out some money. Mm-hmm. You have your attorney, you've already invested in that. Now you're laying out inspections. You probably applied for your mortgage, or you're somewhere in that process where you have at least, put your, origination fee or some sort of something towards your financing. And now you're spending some money. And now we are not
home inspectors by any means.
We are not home inspectors. However, there are things that we should recognize and be able to point out, and then give you the recommendations of who you may need to verify any information, or to discover, I should say, is probably a better way of putting it.
And to add to that, since we kind of speed dated through that process, going to home inspections is having the right inspector for the property, because there may be, there could be a well, a septic,
Yep.
There may be an indication of anything that may be structural going down into the basement.
Right.
And again, we can't speak to that because we're not a home inspector or a qualified profession to say those, but these are key things that we're kind of noting to place those nuggets, just so it's in the back of the buyer's mind.
Yeah, pointing out some things. So, kind of getting back to
The beginning.
Where was I? I think what to look for in an agent, I think a couple things. If I were starting out and I've never bought a home and I don't have a recommendation. Now, I'm going to speak to that also, is if I have a recommendation, I'm not going to go with just that one recommendation, right? I'm going to look for a couple others. And how do you do that, We don't get our news from Facebook.
Well, I want to speak to that
But it
too.
helps.
My favorite analogy is, when you go to a car salesman, are you going to go for the first car on the lot? No, you're going to take a look at the overall
Right.
spectrum, and you're going to, shop, and that's what you should do.
Right, you should shop. And that also, I think what happens is too, it's an interview process.
Mm-hmm.
And so you're in the driver's seat. Feel good about being in the driver's seat. And take that opportunity to interview a couple of agents, and make sure that agent's interviewing you also. So some of the things to look for, I think the key things, what I would say, first and foremost, is someone that's going to listen to you. Mm-hmm. And that they understand. Because communication is really important. Like, sometimes there's just that disconnect. Like, you're saying stuff and they don't get it. And you want to feel comfortable, because you're going to be with that person. Who knows how long?
And especially if you're being a first-time home buyer too, I always say any question's not a bad one. No
Right.
matter how stupid, quote unquote, you think it may be, it's important to you at that time so you understand what you're diving into.
There's no stupid questions whatsoever. I like it when I get a question I've never had before. I'm like, yeah. Let's go. But so that's definitely first and foremost. So go back to, we were talking about people who like, well, I'll wait until I find the property and then whoever brought it to me or whoever was the listing agent, which is another thing. If as a first time home buyer, you may not want to, I would recommend you not, work with the listing agent because the listing agent is representing the seller's best interest. And if they are a highly qualified agent, they're not going to be trying to pose as representing your interest. That's dual agency, which I believe represents no one in the transaction, but you really need someone who is an advocate for you. That's going to save you time, it's going to save you money, it's going to save you frustration. So don't seek the listing agent. You're not getting a better deal that way. Some people think, well, I'm going to save on commissions.
Yeah, and that's a big misconception overall. And, again, you want somebody who's representing your best interest.
Yep, absolutely. How you find these agents? There's a lot of ways. I mean, Google searching. There's social media. There are, friends and family. That does help. Advertising, look in the newspaper for who's out there, who's doing business. And then, what do you want in your agent? That's, I think, is a really personal thing. Do you care if they have tons and tons of transactions? Is that the most important? Do you want the highest producing agent? Maybe that's not the best fit for you.
Exactly. And I think that goes to, again, your initial gut feeling when you have those conversations. If you feel confident as a home buyer, you want to carry that throughout the transaction. And I do think that comes from your initial gut instinct of speaking with somebody.
I think also when you meet an agent, if they're going to want to have a consultation with you, that's a pretty good sign. Any agent that's just going to keep taking you out and showing you property, to me, that's a red flag. I think so
too. And the reason being is you don't have that initial buyer's consultation. Again, that kind of goes back to the interview process for who you're going to work with. But really, the importance of that is sitting down and knowing your goals and making them clear. Because I always tell everybody, you could have a wish list to start, and then by the time you actually buy your home, it could be completely different because now you dove into a few different houses. You've seen a different few areas.
Right.
And sometimes what you initially think you start with is not what you end up with.
Yeah. So how important would you say it is to have your financing in order before you find an agent?
Oh, that is very important. Having your ducks in a row, especially in this
Okay, so you and I are probably going to disagree on this.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Okay.
I'm going to give you two perspectives so you can just dive in.
I think it's super
There's no
important.
right or wrong. Yep.
I think it's super important because I never want to show a property to somebody who's not
Okay, before you find an agent.
Before you find an agent?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I still think it's important.
Okay, to have your financing in order?
I think so.
Okay.
And the reason being is because you want to, and you know what, maybe you need that recommendation, or maybe you go to your bank, which a lot of people do. They just, they put trust into their bank that they've banked with for 10 years or so on and so forth. Even knowing that possibility and reaching out, I think that
I'm going to say that I agree and disagree.
I know why you're going to disagree.
Okay.
I know why you're going to disagree, but I'm one of those people, and maybe this is a me thing, I like having my ducks in a row so I know the possibilities.
Okay, so I'm going to agree with you with that. From a realtor's perspective, I like it when somebody comes to me and they've been pre-qualified.
Yeah, that's what I'm at.
I love it. However, at the same token, I don't want them pigeonholed into that financing. And all my lender friends are going to be like, because we have lenders that we recommend and I will use them. Sorry, guys, it's the fact of the matter, and you know it, for a pre-qual letter.
Absolutely. And I want to speak to that because I knew that's where you're going towards. And I feel like some people, again, they think they're stuck with that first option.
Right,
so
right.
I will play devil's advocate against myself that, hey, I spoke with this one person from this 1-800 number. And this may not be one of the local banks that are here or that you bank with. It could be one of the online banks,
Right.
which is, as a listing agent on the other side, we don't really want to see that come through in
Right.
certain ways
Not at all.
because we want somebody, again, boots on the ground here. But I do feel like it's important after that fact, if we establish that,
Yeah.
hey, I just want to let you know, here's a few recommendations, and this is why I'm recommending shopping, programs, whatever it may be, especially as a first-time home buyer.
Yeah, definitely. Just like you're going to shop for your agent, just like you're shopping for your home. And so one of the things that I think is critically important is probably one of the most important components of everything is your financing. Even more important than us, which, who's more important than us? Lenders and in your financing, that there's a lot of cash outlay. And so the reason why I don't care if someone comes to me, like I like them completely raw. Like I love them.
And I'm not against that.
I love them raw. Give me someone, and I love that because we're starting fresh, and then I can walk them through all of the things, all of the 50,000 steps that they probably don't want to hear about. But the financing, if somebody comes to me with financing in order with a pre-qual, I'm still going to do the same exact thing.
I mean, I still do the same thing, but I still do like that they've
But
already
it helps.
taken. Yeah, and it's already taken that first step that you are
So I'm going to
serious.
say you're right on this one. You're totally right.
I'm not saying you're wrong. But I do like that they have already taken the initiative, so they're serious. They're serious.
Oh, 100%. You're absolutely right there. They've actually made that first step to find out at least what they qualify for or what they're comfortable in a monthly payment. Because that really, you could look at one or two homes without that, but why? Why do you want to do that?
I always say, I don't want to show you a property you don't qualify for. The reason being because it's going to disappoint you.
So frustrating.
And it's unfortunately, and this is just going to be blunt, it's a waste of time.
It is.
And,
and time is of the essence right now on the market. There's not a lot of
for
inventory.
buyers.
Yeah.
So that's why having that pre-notion of having the pre-qualification prior to even speaking with an agent works in your benefit in this type of market because it's so fast-paced and it's competitive.
Check mark for Jenna. There you go. So again, getting back to your agent should have a consultation, and one of the things they should talk about is your financing, even if you come in with a pre-qual letter. And what's a pre-qual letter? I'll kind of break it down just in case anyone's never done anything. It's just basically having a conversation, going through a couple of steps with a lender. Could be a mortgage lender, could be a banker, local, whatever the case. And that's where they're going to ask you a few questions just about income, assets, and expenses. And then they're not really going to do a deep dive. They're not going to start making phone calls or doing any type of verification. It's just kind of saying that this is what we feel you would be able to finance. And that's a pre-qualification letter. Now, if you have a pre-approval, that's where they go into another layer. And that's where they're actually doing some more verifications. They are going to pull a credit report. Most lenders will want to pull a credit report on a pre-qualification letter. And sometimes I will be able to, can I say this? I will be able to get the lender not to do that. So not pinging your credit. That's a whole nother conversation. But on the pre-approval, they've pulled credit report, they've verified some assets, verified some income. They've done a little bit more verification, but they haven't done anything on the home. Okay, so they'll still have a few more verifications. It gives a lot more credibility if you're going in to negotiate, which, jumping ahead on that. But it does give you a lot more assurance that we're in pretty good shape here, and they're probably committing to an interest rate. So that's going to get you a much closer number to what you qualify for. Now, what you're comfortable for is a whole nother thing.
And that's another good saying. You don't want to be house broke. Just because you see what you max qualify for on a letter doesn't mean that that's where you're comfortable in your monthly expenses, especially if you want to take vacations, if you're somebody who really loves going out to eat. And those are things during a buyer's consultation that I like to sit down and really kind of figure out your lifestyle as well. Because there's people who are just homebodies that are just, okay, I want to sit here and this is where I want to spend my money. But then I really hone into those, outside of home ownership. What are your other expenses and what do you like to do? Where do you like to spend your money? Not exactly as like a financial advisor, but I don't want to put you in a situation as your representation, if you chose to work with me, somewhere where you're just going to be, just paying a bill just to pay a bill. We
Yeah.
don't want to do that.
We don't want anyone upside down or regretting anything like that.
Exactly.
So we do talk about that quite a bit. So talking about the financing, that is a component of it. And then it's really about trying to identify, and sometimes with first-time homebuyers, they really don't know. They know maybe bedrooms and bathrooms, but some of the other things they're not really sure about. Or they may be more open to certain different areas. One of the things with that you're going to want to know is that your agent is familiar with the locations that you're looking in. And that is not to say that any individual agent is an expert in every neighborhood. That's really not possible.
I think that's important to mention. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, but there are ways that you can really get up to speed quickly. So if it's a neighborhood that you haven't, outer lying areas, I mean, we have a huge geographic area that we cover. And then, of course, our concentration is, we know, like the back of our hand, we're really entrenched in the areas. And we're plugged in already. But then there's some areas that we might have a client where they're more flexible, going to some outer lying areas. It's not that hard once you have that, expertise of how to research an area and get up to speed, and then, making sure that you're comfortable with them in those marketplaces. So.
And I do think that's important too, is making sure that, because you're not just looking at the price of the home, you're looking at the values around it, you're looking at the taxes, which a lot of people don't consider when they're looking at a home. They just look at a price and they're like, that's it, but the taxes could be $7,000 to $10,000. Is that an expense that never goes away that you want to spend money on?
Here's a bigger deal, okay? And this is another thing I see happen, and not a lot of agents do this, and we know to do this. What are the taxes now? What is it assessed for, right? So a lot of people think that assessment equals value, and it doesn't, right? What a home is assessed for does not equal the value of the home. And there's equalization rates, and I'm not going to get into that, but a good agent is going to be able to explain equalization rate to you. So let's say you're looking, and I'm just going to use round numbers because I'm really bad at math. I'm good at real estate though. But you're looking at $500,000. But the home is assessed for, let's say, $250,000, and it has not resold in a number of years, okay? The taxes are, let's say, $7,500. Well, guess what? They're not going to be when you close on it. They're going to be probably $10,000, maybe more, or double. So you've got to have an agent that understands that and is going to look at that and explain to you that these are the taxes today. And not only do that, but look at what are the homes in the neighborhood assessed for, right? Because if all the homes are assessed at, say, $250,000, just because you're sold for $500,000, we can't control what the assessor is going to do. And that's where you may want to have a conversation with an assessor, not your agent yourself, but go in and say, hey, these are likely to go up. And the probability is this based on the other homes in the area. Or an easy answer is all the homes are assessed at $500,000 in your neighborhood. Guess what? You're going to $500,000 assessment, because that's where homes, it's just going to be. They're going to use the transfer stamps and the taxes go up. So it's not just what they are today. So having an agent that understands those things. What other things do you think or see happening, at least, like with first-time buyers that have come to you? Have you had any first-time buyers come to you that had other agents before you?
I actually have. I had, especially in the past year or so. And it was people who were not getting back to them. It wasn't people they felt comfortable walking through a home with. And I don't have, any exact example. After walking through a home with me, and this is not just to put, my value out there, but how I walk through a home. Again, we're not just going to point out the kitchen, the bathroom, the living room. I really go into those fine nitty-gritty details because I want to point out everything in the house. I want you to see it. I want you to understand it. I want to try to bring so much education so you know what to look for. Even if that's not the house for you, I want you to start being able to realize different things walking through a home from your perspective.
Yeah, to see it on your own. What other mistakes would you say that you see first-time buyers making that may cost them time? Obviously, choosing the wrong agent.
Choosing the wrong agent, not choosing the right loan program that may benefit them.
Yep.
I think another thing is a home inspector. I think that is a very big one, because that is the person that is going to be having conversations with you about every nitty gritty detail of the home. And sometimes those things could be scary, especially if you don't know.
So I'm glad you spoke to that, because one of the things in a competitive market, a lot of agents, we don't generally recommend not having an inspection, because that just, especially for first-time home buyers. I don't care if you bring your father, your uncle, your brother, your whatever. Unless someone's qualified to go through that home, not us, then it really does put you at risk. So one of the things that we've done for a lot of our home buyers in a competitive market, we've spent weekends showing property with an inspector doing pre-inspections. We work, negotiate out a rate, and they're coming with us. And so in order to be competitive, to remove that contingency with minimal risk, that would be the only way. But don't not have an inspection. I think that's just so risky.
Even to any buyer, first time home buyer, it's your fifth time buying a home.
Yeah.
I feel like doing, really taking that time to make sure that you understand the ins and outs of that house is the most important thing, because I'm not a 15-minute showing agent. I don't like to go into a house and just walk it for 15 minutes. I usually schedule out a lot longer than that, just to make sure we're going through the house thoroughly. And, that's even a pre-note to the inspection. But, you want to make sure you know every nitty-gritty detail going into it.
And a good inspector is going to point that out.
Absolutely.
And it's an insurance policy. If you're in a highly competitive market where you're negotiating and you're up against cash, or you're up against people that are waiving inspections, that's one way you can have your inspection and be able to waive it and give yourself a negotiating edge. It's not going to work every single time, and it's not recommended every single time. And we are getting into now a market where it's still very competitive for buyers in all price points and categories, but it's better than it was several months ago, where it was just all bets are off. It's just tough. Overbidding, outbidding, and waiving inspections, and just going in. It's a little bit better, so you'll have that time for an inspection, hopefully, in negotiations.
Yeah, I think, again, that's important. I think it's an important contingency to have, and, even to build on to that whole notion is you really want to make sure that, again, you know the property and you know what you're getting yourself into.
Yeah. So I think some of the key takeaways, what I'm going to tell you is my recommendations, that's what I'm going to say, is don't search on your own. Don't go to third-party platforms without a realtor. If you want to go and look, that's fine. Bring it to an agent that you're comfortable with. Do the consultation with an agent. Don't have an agent that you do not have a strong working relationship with negotiating an offer for you, because you're going to be with that agent and they're either going to mess it up for you, or they're going to get it through the hoop, and hopefully everything works out great. They may get it through the hoop and then it turns into a nightmare. So you want an agent that has experience, that if they are fairly new in the business, that they have someone that is overseeing everything that happens and occurs, not just when there's a problem. The other thing I would say is the takeaway is interview. Give yourself that opportunity, take the time, interview a few agents. If that agent isn't doing a consultation and walking you through every step of what you can expect, I would steer away from that, because if it doesn't start really well at the beginning, it may not get better as you navigate. Ask the agent. Whenever we recommend somebody, we're always recommending at least 3 people. And then I'm always preparing my clients for what to ask, what questions to ask. I always tell them, you can ask these questions, don't ask them if you're not comfortable, but these are the questions I recommend. Certainly ask any others that you are feeling important to you. But like when it comes to attorneys, I will prep them on what to ask for them. One of the questions I have them ask is, what is your availability? And I would tell you to ask your agent, what is your availability right now? What happens when you go on vacation, right?
Oh, that's a big one.
I can't tell you how many calls we'll get where a buyer is desperate to see a home.
I take those calls. I understand them.
And they're like, and I'm like, you don't have an agent? Yes, I have an agent. Where's your agent? Well, my agent's on vacation. Now, this is not within our company, mind you, because this just doesn't happen here. But my agent's on vacation. Did your agent set you up with someone in their office or their firm to cover and help you? No. And if they did, they don't know who. and they don't know where to go. And that has got to be the worst feeling in the world. Don't work with those agents. That's just basically setting you up for failure. And this is it, we're in a market, it's getting better, but there are some properties that are nanosecond. You need an agent who's on it. And if they're on vacation, everyone deserves vacation, but make sure that, ask your agent, how is your availability? How are you prepared if you go on vacation? Don't begrudge your agent on vacation. They need it to recharge. But
even from like a normal, timeline and perspective of that, of making sure that your agent is readily available to show you properties, as soon as you have that interest, unfortunately for buyer's agents, you have to be at the ease of the convenience of your client's schedule. Everybody gets into real estate because of the flexible schedule. And it's only as flexible as your clients, which is fine because that's what we're here to do. But I've had it, and this is, a few of the examples of people who had agents that worked with them and then have switched over to, working with me. Or, just conversations of having that with different agents, not even just in our brokerage, but my agent just didn't pick up, 24 hours, and then we didn't get to see the property, and then all of a sudden the showings were gone. You couldn't take them.
But you want to ask, so kind of the key takeaways is you want to ask the questions like, what can I expect from you? Right? Yes. What can I expect? I would give you another question that you may not have thought of. I would ask your agent, what do you like about real estate?
I think that's a great one.
And I do too, because I could tell you, I could talk for half an hour, or more. That gives you a really good understanding and some insight into your agent, I think. And you want those personalities to click and jive and feel comfortable, but you also want to know what's most important to them. Like that kind of gives a little bit more, because listen, Google reviews, they're great and they're really important to have someone that has them, but that's kind of a review on themselves. Why are you in this? What do you love about real estate and things like that? So I think those would be the key takeaways if you're getting in there. Interview, make the commitment. If it's not working out, then recognize that and move on from it. Move on quickly.
Don't feel stuck in that position.
Ask your agent, what's their team? And I don't mean team of agents. I mean, what's their team of people? Like, who do they have recommendations? Do they have recommendations for lenders, for attorneys, for handymen, for carpenters, for electricians, for inspectors, for mold remediation, for, movers,
the full spectrum, the full picture.
Spectrum. Do they have all that? And so, those are my key takeaways. If you could take anything out, hopefully that helps. I don't know. What do you?
I think you hit it on the nail. You just want to make sure that, you're picking the right agent that fits your needs, that you get along with well, that you feel confident in. And then again, they're going over the documents, they're going over the time frame and what it may look like or what's important. I think a lot of it is if that agent picks up the phone too and calls the listing agent, that connection right there versus texting, emailing, which so many, I hate to say it, but so many agents do, and it actually discredits a buyer's agent if your main communication is through an email and text message. Picking up the phone and having personalization and hearing the listing agent talk about what's important to the seller or their situation.
But not only that, call your agent.
That too.
See if they pick up the phone for you. Like every time. I pick up my phone all the time.
Yes, you do.
Like I always pick up my phone. Now I will tell you that I'm getting so many spam calls. It's getting like really hard to answer the phone all the time. And then I did put this blocker on, which was not good because then it was blocking good calls. So I don't know. I don't want to get a new phone number, but I get a ton of calls and I answer the phone. What is it? I get a spam call. It takes 15 seconds. So I hang up, they hang up. I don't know if they're thrilled. Sometimes I keep them on the line though. And then I have fun. Let's go for it. But yeah, call your agent. See if they're picking up the phone. Granted, I do not pick up my phone if I'm in an appointment. Rarely. Absolutely. Only if I know that I'm in the middle of an emergency that requires high priority and then I'm going to take every single call that comes in during that time period. And if you get voicemail, how long does it take for them to get back to you?
Yeah.
So,
and that's extremely important. And I think the overall key takeaway, if you could sum it up in one word, what would you say for a first-time home buyer?
Can I use 2 words?
Sure. What are those 2 words?
I'm trying to consolidate like 5 words into 1 or 2.
Use 5.
I'm going to say pay attention.
I think that is a really, really good
Just
one.
pay attention. Listen with your eyes. I'm going to just keep on going. Pay attention to what you don't hear sometimes.
I think that's really valid. That's super important.
Your turn.
My turn. I put you on the spot, and
I'll give you more than 1 word. But 1 word would be really good. I think it's too hard for 1 word.
I think it needs to be transparency. And the reason
That's a really good one.
I think the reason being that I would pick that 1 word for a first-time home buyer is because, and I'm going to bring it back to what we already discussed, there's no bad questions. Being transparent about how you're feeling, how you feel in the process, what you think something looks like. If you don't understand, even something as simple as a term and condition, the situation at hand with the home, every home comes with a different situation, but transparency. Don't be afraid to speak how you feel, and don't be afraid to ask the questions, because they're so important.
Yep. Well, thank you. If you have stuck with us, this is Coffee and Conversations. I'm Cindy Quaid with Signature One Realty Group, and
I am Jenna Toodle-Amundo.
Stay tuned. Hopefully you got a couple nuggets out of this. We're here to help. We're easy to get a hold of. 518 New Home.
Thank you.
Make it a great day, and make homeownership a top priority.